Hello everybody, welcome to my channel Homeopathy Super Sessions by Dr. Jargos. Today's topic for discussion is susceptibility. I'll be dividing it into 4 parts, and the first part, which I'm going to present today, will consist of the definition, the 2 important factors on which susceptibility depends, and its Organon reference. Please do see my video. If you like it, give it a big thumbs up. Please forward, share, comment, and pass on the message to other students. Thank you. So today we will start with the first part. In the first part, you will see the introduction, the Organon reference, along with the explanation, and 2 important factors for susceptibility to take place. Now let us see one by one what each has to show us. In the introduction, basic definition is, it is an inherited tendency of a living organism to react to a stimuli, either external or internal. So basically, in the definition, it states that it is an inherent, meaning an inborn tendency of a living organism to react to a stimulus. So it again gives an important point saying that it has to occur only in a living organism. So it is an inherent or an inborn tendency of only living organisms to react to a stimuli. So kindly remember that it is only about the living organisms. So it reacts to a stimuli, either external or internal. Now the external stimuli is the environmental factors. So the environmental factors, you can classify them as the physical factors like heat, sun, cold, wind, etc. The chemical factors like exposure to carbon monoxide, carbon dioxide, pollution. Biological factors like viruses, bacteria, fungi, protozoa, and the psychosocial cultural factors. That is the stress and strain of modern life. And the internal factors can be classified into all the normal physiological processes which are going on in our body internally. They are the internal factors. So they are digestion, assimilation, excretion, secretion, metabolism, catabolism, nutrition, repair, etc. So all these functions are the internal functions. So as long as the stimuli is there, and as long as the vital force is working in harmony with the external or the internal functions, health will be maintained. Or we say that the patient has a normal susceptibility. So therefore, in this definition, I again repeat, it is an inherent tendency or an inborn tendency of a living organism, I repeat, of a living organism to react to a stimuli, either external, that is the environmental factors, or internal, that is the normal physiological processes going on in our body. So hence susceptibility, it forms the very basis of life. And it is the root of all biological life. That means if there was no susceptibility, there would be no disease, and mankind would be in a total healthy state. As I told you in my previous videos also, life is never static. It is always in motion. Similarly, the vital force is also in motion with the life as well as the susceptibility. So all 3 of them are in constant motion. So susceptibility, it includes all reactions like your gestures, the way you talk or the speech, the way you act or actions, and the way you behave or your behavior. So thus emotions and thoughts are the background of the action. So whatever your emotions are there, whatever thoughts are there, they are projected. They are as a result of the action. So susceptibility is variable from the cradle to the grave or from birth to death. As I told you, it is always in a wave form. It starts when the sperm and the ovum meet together. The vital force starts. It gives life to the cell. and the cell has susceptibility. So therefore, right from birth till death, the susceptibility will vary at different levels. So therefore, I've written, thus it varies at different levels. And what are these levels? As I said, conception, then the birth, neonate, infant, childhood, adolescence, adult, old age, elderly, and death. So you can see these are the march of events which take place, and it is in the form of a wave. It is never static. It always moves on. So right from conception till death, we have got various uh, changes occurring in the state of susceptibility. Like for example, at birth it will be the highest, at an elderly or old age it will be at the lowest. So therefore, you can see the variability of the susceptibility at different levels. So vital force precedes susceptibility. Susceptibility is evidence of vital force which manifests in functions and sensations. So in other words, vital force is nothing but the force of susceptibility, which is manifested in functions and sensations. So all the different functions which is carried on by the vital force, which has evidence of susceptibility, it will be seen through all the internal functions like anabolism, catabolism, digestion, respiration, secretion, excretion, etc. And all the different sensations also in the body, which are result of an abnormal sensation, will be seen. So a normal, if you're in health, naturally you will not get any sensation. Only when the vital force has been deranged or the susceptibility has been altered, you get different sensations like throbbing pain, colicky pain in the abdomen, shooting type of headache or throbbing type of headache, etc. So therefore, in health, homeostasis is maintained, as a result of which the vital force is in harmony and susceptibility is normal. So whenever homeostasis is maintained, or whenever health is there, or whenever a person is in a healthy state of mind and body, the susceptibility always remains normal. Only in the disease state it gets deranged and it becomes abnormal. So though through vital force, though vital force is on a dynamic level and susceptibility is at the cellular level, though it is also dynamic. That means what? You all know vital forces on the dynamic level, but susceptibility is at the level of the cells. Okay, each cell will have susceptibility, but this also is a part and parcel of the dynamic nature because it is a part and parcel of the vital force itself. Therefore, though susceptibility at the cellular level, it is also dynamic in nature. It is known through the reactions of an individual. So naturally, so different individuals have different susceptibility, hence their reaction also will differ. And reaction is a result of susceptibility. So the way you react or how you react, in what particular manner you react, that will depend upon your state of susceptibility. So now let us see the reference in the Organon textbook. The first reference is given in the 6th edition of Organon of Medicine by Dr. Hahnemann in aphorism number 32-33. Now let us see each of the aphorisms and I will explain it to you so that the concept becomes clear or will become more clear. The human body, so in aphorism number 30, it says, the human body appears to admit of being much more powerfully affected in a healthy state by medicine. That means what? That the human body can be affected in a healthy state by medicine in a more powerful manner. Why? Partly because we have the regulation of the dose in our own power. That means what? Whatever dose is there, we want to give the medicine in order to prove the drug, we can change it from 30 to 200 to 1 m on the centesimal scale. Then by natural morbid stimuli, for natural diseases are cured and overcome by suitable medicine. So out here it says that the human body appears to be admit of being much more powerfully affected by medicines than by the natural body stimuli. Why? Because natural diseases are cured and overcome by suitable medicines. So medicines are more powerful. They will overcome the disease and the person will be cured. So out here, this is the first reference of susceptibility. After number 31, it says, the inimical forces, partly psychical, partly physical, to which our terrestrial existence is exposed. That means what? The human being or the human organism is always exposed to the environmental factors, as I told you before. They could be the psychical factors like constant, as I told you, the environmental factors are in the psychical level will be the psychosocial, cultural, and partly physical. Physical, I've told you, heat, sun, etc., etc., to which our terrestrial existence is exposed. So we are constantly exposed to the mental stress and strain of modern life, as well as to the physical factors of the environment, and which are termed as morbific noxious agents. So this is important. Dr. Hahnemann has termed them as the morbific noxious agents. And they do not possess the power of morbidly deranging the health of man unconditionally. That means what? These morbific noxious agents cannot derange the health of man unconditionally. That means what? It requires some sort of an condition. Only if this condition is there, then only the disease will occur. But we are made ill by them only when our organism is sufficiently disposed and susceptible. So, when are we made sick, or when does a body from health change into a disease state? When our when the organism is sufficiently disposed. That means it's continuously exposed to the either psychical or physical environmental factors. And second important point is that they are susceptible to the attack of morbific cause that may be present. So though you're exposed, but if you're not susceptible, you will not come into a disease state. So that is why Dr. Hahnemann has very correctly said that you have to be sufficiently exposed as well as you have to be susceptible, and to be altered in its health, deranged, and made to undergo abnormal sensations and functions. So if you are susceptible, if the morbific noxious agent has acted for a sufficiently long time on the healthy organism, and if the healthy organism becomes susceptible, then what happens? The health is altered. And what happens? We get abnormal sensations and functions. That is the disease state. Hence, they do not produce disease in everyone, nor at all times. So that means what? For a disease to produce, it has to have some predetermined condition. Therefore, the disease will not occur in everyone, nor it will occur at everyone at different or the same time. 32 tells you it is quite otherwise when the artificial morbific agents, which we term medicine. So out here it says, now it is quite the opposite, or it is quite otherwise, that the artificial morbific agents, what we are terming as the word medicines, it is quite different. So in episode number 31, we have seen about the disease force, that it has to have some condition in order for the disease to take place, and that condition should sufficiently attack the organism, and the organism should be susceptible. Then only the disease will be there, or then only the person will be transferred from the healthy state to the disease state. Disease state presents by signs and symptoms with abnormal sensations and functions. So out here it says in 32 aphorism, but it is quite otherwise with the artificial morbific agents, which we termed medicine. Let us see what he has to say. Every real medicine, namely, acts at all times, under all circumstances, on every human being. So out here says that any medicine what we are taking, it will act at all times. That means whatever time you give it, morning, evening, afternoon, night, or whatever climate you give it, summer, winter, autumn, spring, whatever, it will act under all circumstances. So whatever circumstances are there, it will act on every human being and produces in himself its peculiar symptoms. And naturally, it will produce peculiar symptoms, distinctly perceptible if the dose be large enough. So if the dose be large enough, meaning what? If you go on to the higher potency. So if you prove a drug on a lower potency, generally you are getting only physical complaints. if you go to the higher potency, you will get more of the mental symptoms. So, therefore, he says that a medicinal force is always unconditional. It doesn't require a predetermined condition for it to act. So that evidently every human being, human organism is liable to be affected. So therefore he says the medicinal force is unconditional and it will act on every human organism as it were inoculated with medicinal disease at all times. And absolutely unconditionally, which, as said before, is by no means the case with the natural disease. So out here he's telling you that the medicinal force is an unconditional force. It acts at all times under all circumstances on every living or on every human being, as compared to the disease force, which is conditioned. It doesn't act at all times. It requires special circumstances to act on the human being. So 30, 31 and 32, it tells you about the susceptibility, that the human organism has to be susceptible, then only the disease will occur. Then he tells you about the disease force, which is a conditional force. And the next one, he tells you about the medicine or the medicinal force, which is an unconditional force. So in accordance with the fact, it is undeniably shown by all experience that the living organism is much more disposed and has a greater liability to be acted on and to have its health deranged by medicinal powers. So out here he says that it is undeniably shown through experience that the health can be deranged by the medicinal powers. Why? Because it has a greater liability to be acted on. Furthermore, medicinal powers act unconditionally, then by the morbific noxious agents and infectious miasms. Or in other words, the morbific noxious agents possesses a power of morbidly deranging man health that is subordinate and conditional. That means what? For a disease to occur, or in other words, for a morbific noxious agent or any infectious miasm to occur or affect our body, it will require some predetermined condition. That is why it says it requires a subordinate and conditional force, often very conditional, whilst medicinal agents have an absolute unconditional power greatly superior to the former. So he says that the medicinal agents or the medicinal force, the power is unconditional, which is much more superior and much more greater than the disease force. So if we sum it up, the natural disease is a conditional force. It produces abnormal sensational functions only when the organism is sufficiently disposed and susceptible to the morbific cause. And a medicine or the medicinal force, it is an unconditional force, or rather it is unconditional. It acts at all times under all circumstances. It produces peculiar symptoms in human beings, and it is superior to the natural disease cause. Now, the next point, that is, what are the two important factors responsible for susceptibility to take place? So, for susceptibility to take place, number one, the human organism or the human being should be sensitive, or sensitivity should be there, and he should react to the stimuli. So sensitivity and reactivity are two important factors for susceptibility to take place. Now, what do you mean by sensitivity? It means the registration of inputs to either external or internal factors. That means what? The human being is there, or the human organism is there. He is bombarded by the external causes as well as the internal factors in the body, as a result of which the individual registers the input, and it will depend upon how sensitive he is at the level of mind in order to express this. So sensitivity, it's an index at the level of mind and senses. Mind at the level of emotion, and senses at the level of nerves, where you get the painful sensation. So the first factor is there that the external stimuli or the stimuli, either external or internal, it has to affect the individual. Once it affects the individual, it will depend upon the state of sensitivity, how sensitive the individual is. And second point is reactivity. So once the input is bombarded on the individual will react to it depending upon how sensitive the individual is. So the reaction to inputs can be seen externally as action or behavior or gestures or speech. So whatever stimulus is there, and depending upon the sensitivity of the patient, the response will be seen. Okay, so suppose a psychiatrical cause is there, there's a heated argument, and one person responds in a very aggressive manner, whereas the second person will not respond at all, he will just walk away. So externally seen in the action of behavior or action. So have you seen, so one fellow would just walk away, whereas the second fellow would get aggressive. So this is how the susceptibility varies in two individuals, though the force may be the same. And internally it is seen as dreams, delirium, and delusions. So internally also, if the patient or the human organism suppresses its feelings, in the dreams, the subconscious mind gets activated, as a result of which excessive dreams are there, or it may be also seen as delirium or delusions. So reactivity is an index at the level of the mind, that is the emotions and intellect, as well as seen on the body in the form of tissue of affinity, the pathology, and the physical generals in a case. So therefore, two important points for reactivity, for the susceptibility to take place. It is the sensitivity or the registration of inputs, and second, the reactivity. So until you and unless you are sensitive, you will not react. So therefore, susceptibility will vary from person to person, because no two persons are alike. They have a different mental as well as a physical characteristics, which will identify one individual from the other. So this is in short the introduction. Part 2 will be coming soon. Please stay tuned for more. And if you like this video, please do share, comment, like, and forward this video. And please tell your other friends also to subscribe to my channel. Thank you very much.